Hi everyone, welcome to or back to my channel. I'm Sylvie. Today I'm showing you guys a tutorial for how to get this clean girl natural skin makeup look for brown skin with hyperpigmentation. So if you have medium brown or olive skin tones and you struggle with dark circles and hyperpigmentation, then this is the perfect tutorial for you. But this video is going to be long as heck as is, so let's get started. So if we're going to be enhancing our skin, we need to start off with really good skin prep. So at the very least, go in with a really nice moisturizer that's going to be very hydrating for your skin type. For this look, I prep my skin with a hydrating face mist, hydrating serum, and a rich moisturizer for my dry skin. Granted, my hyperpigmentation right now is not as severe as it used to be. I can get away with not having to color correct right now. I still have somewhat of dark circles. They're not very dark and they don't bother me too much, but they're still kind of shadowy. And then I do have some shadowing around my mouth, especially in the smile lines here. Even when my skin wasn't this good, I did stop color correcting underneath my foundation, and I do it in a different way now, which I'll show you. But if the contrast of your hyperpigmentation is very severe, then at this point you would consider going in with a color corrector. This is very important. You do not want to correct with a shade that is much deeper than the depth of your skin. Meaning, if you're trying to go in with a traditional orange corrector like this one here, and you don't have very dark skin, it's going to be very hard for you to sheer this out enough. And often for medium brown skin tones, when you go in with an orange corrector like this one, you then have to end up using so much concealer to cover it up anyway that it's hard to achieve that natural makeup look. So unless you have really dark skin, you do not need to be using a corrector that is this deep and bright orange. You want to look at the depth of your skin tone. So if we look at this palette here, let's see which concealer or corrector might be closest to the depth of my skin tone. I would say either one of these would work. When you're looking for a corrector that is closer to your skin tone, you want to pick something that is this depth, but it has a slight orange undertone to it. So this one, compared to my skin, has a bit more warmth to it. I'll show you guys. So it looks a bit more warm and orange than my actual skin tone, which is perfect for correcting. You could also buy a color corrector that is peach in undertone. Not pink, not salmon, but peach. Salmon or pink is for fairer or cooler undertones. So if you do have a cooler undertone, you can get away with using a more salmon color. If you guys want to learn more about color correcting and the many different methods I use for color correcting under or over your makeup, then please check out the video that I'm going to link somewhere on this video or in the description box below. Just for the sake of it, I'm going to show you how you're going to correct underneath your foundation if that's what you want to do. I'm going in with my NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer in the shade Biscuit. For a clean skin look, you never want to just go in with your wand and start applying on your face, because you're not going to be able to control the amount that you put on your face. I like to go in with a brush. A tiny one will do. I'm not going to do that much on my face because I really want to do it the way that I usually do it. But let's say I have that shadowiness there, right? So I'm just going to target the area that I actually needed. I'm not going to apply the concealer first and then start blending it out. And you especially don't want to go off the bat with a sponge, because the sponge is going to move it around everywhere and you're not going to be able to conceal it. So do you see the difference that it made? It did correct the area, but it didn't spread everywhere. And I still have my skin and the realness of the rest of my skin hanging around. I might also go over the chin here a little bit because I tend to get a little bit shadowy. And you know, what the heck? I'll also go in this deep groove. And you don't have to have completely perfect or clear skin to do this. If you have dark spots or acne, you can still do this. So you would just take the corrector or concealer with a small brush and just tap it on. You're not swiping, you're not moving everything away, you just lightly tap it on and you get rid of whatever spot there is. I honestly wouldn't even use a foundation. on this, but I'm going to show you the step for those of you who do want to use a foundation. Once you have done the correcting, you want to go in with a very, very lightweight sheer foundation. You can definitely pick something that is more natural finish or a more natural matte finish or something with a glowy finish. I personally love the L'Oreal True Match Nude Foundation. I also really love the e.l.f. Halo Glow Liquid Filter. Another one that is actually really amazing to sheer out that looks so natural is the Maybelline Fit Me Matte and Poreless Foundation. I know it's said to be a bit more on the medium to fuller coverage side, but you can sheer this one out so amazingly. So if you have an oilier skin type, you could definitely go for this one. Today, I'm gonna go in with the L'Oreal True Match Nude Foundation. So because this is very, very lightweight, I'm just patting that on with the dense brush. And the patting motion is also going to ensure that I don't wipe off any of the color correcting that I did underneath. So you don't want to be swiping or buffing it over your skin. You just want to lightly pat it on. Use a very light hand, because the more pressure you put on, the more it's going to sort of move your products around. And then when I get to the forehead, I actually will sort of sheer it out, because you honestly, for most people, do not need coverage on the forehead. And then once you're done with the brush, just go ahead with a damp sponge and pounce it all out. And this is going to get rid of all those brush marks that you might have. So here is the difference. It does not look like much, but it's just the slightest amount of coverage. It just really evens out the skin tone in the most minimal way. And another reason why it's great to consider using a sheer foundation that doesn't even look like it's there is because very often the color of our face does not match the color of our neck and chest. So my face can tend to be a little bit lighter or pinkier in some areas than my neck and chest. And this is a great way to even out the color without adding coverage. I'm just gonna do the same on the other side. I love this foundation. It's so hydrating feeling on the skin. I can feel it hydrating and sinking into my skin. Whatever it is, it feels so good. This is also in the shade 4-5 medium, by the way. The shade is slightly more neutral than my skin, but because it's such a lightweight foundation, it's like a skin tint. Once you put it on, you can't really tell the difference. And I'm also not bringing the foundation up to my eye area. We're trying to not create too many layers with our products. Now, this is what I love to do when it comes to concealing and correcting. Because my hyperpigmentation isn't very intense, I prefer to do my foundation and then I will do my concealer. You want to go in with a concealer that is pretty much very close to your skin tone. And again, you want to pick a shade that's slightly warmer than your skin tone, meaning that it has a slightly more orange tint to it than your skin tone. And I take a concealer brush. This is kind of dense, but it's got a little bit of a movement to it. And then I take a little bit onto the brush and I'm really working it into the brush so there's not like excess product sitting on it. And the key is to pick a higher coverage concealer and use a very small amount of it. So I'm just patting it on. When it comes to covering your hyperpigmentation and making it look lifelike and real, I'm not going to go all the way up to my lash line. Okay, that's what's going to make it look makeup-y and fake. We see where the darkness is. It's like pretty much here. And what we want to do is bring balance to the face. I usually go in with bronzer and eyeshadow like in these areas anyway to smoke it out slightly. So I don't want to take that natural shadow away. So I essentially just go underneath this line and I conceal this area. And you're really wanting to target where you need coverage. And this is why it's amazing to use a smaller brush. So I'm just patting that on, and patting is really going to do the blending for you. I concentrate it where it's the darkest first, which is the inner corner here, and I pat it, and as I pat, it shears out. And as it shears out, I sort of bring it down and diffuse those edges. And then I'm also bringing it into this inner corner. So you can see how much difference that has made. It hasn't taken away from the realness of my face, but it's just brought a little bit more balance. Again, just starting tapping into that innermost corner, and I'm not bringing it up past that little crease. And I bring it up into the corner a bit more. And here's the fun part that's gonna actually make you love your dark circles. Just hear me out. We tend to have darkness and pigmentation on our eyelids. We put on eyeshadow anyway, which makes our eyelids darker. So why are we getting rid of this pigmentation when it's already there? And so we're doing extra work by putting concealer all over our eyelids, and putting powder on it, putting eyeshadow on it, and creating more and more layers. So what I like to do with the concealer then is when I've diffused it out to the edge, some of our hyperpigmentation might come lower. Actually, let me wipe that so I can show you. My darkness starts to come a little bit lower here. So what I like to do is take that concealer and just cut that darkness, create a lift. So you're literally using your dark circles as eyeshadow, basically. Just take that brush and I just create a lift there. And if you get that harsh line there, just tap it out so it doesn't look so fake. And then you can continue to use your dark circles, essentially reverse eyeshadowing. That's a thing. So instead of like doing shadow here, I'm lightening the areas that I want to be light, which is this inner corner here, and then I even want to shape the shadow here. And you can even soften the edges there. So I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm just creating the eyeshadow shape that I want. So that looks pretty good to me. And that's how you can use your dark circles to your advantage. And I'm going to go back in with my small brush, start to target the areas that I want brightened. So once again, I'm working the concealer into the brush, so it's only applying the amount that I need. And it's also sort of blending it out as I go. And then I can take that fluffy brush or a sponge, just pounce that in. Right, so next I get a little bit of shadowing around the lips. So I want to just work on that and brighten it up. So I tend to get a bit more shadowing on these sides. What I'll do is just, I mean, you can't really tell because there's bright lights, but I'm just gonna bring some concealer there, over here, okay? And I'll bring it up this way. And again, this is the smallest amount. It just gives you a lift in the face as it conceals and corrects. And I'm not bringing it all the way up to my lip because I don't want to get rid of the shadow under my lip. That's what gives you the fullness and definition for your lips. So you're not actually taking away any of the hyperpigmentation that gives you definition to your face. If you like, you can leave it here, but I like to add a little bit of highlight. So I'm taking a slightly lighter concealer. This is Maybelline Fit Me concealer in the shade 20 Sand. And I'm not doing this for concealing, I'm just doing this for brightening. So I am taking the smallest amount of my brush. Again, I sheared it out on the back of my hand. And this is not gonna give me a lot of coverage. This is just gonna create dimension by bringing light to the center of the face. And I only just want it on the forehead and the nose. Maybe a tiny bit of brightness into those smile lines on the chin. I really don't have a lot of product left on the brush. I'm just going in with like the sheerest amount. So that just brought a lot of light and dimension to the center of our face without adding coverage. Now for contour and bronzer. My goal is to just bring balance to the face. You've done all the concealing and correcting already, so this next part is totally up to you. And you don't really want to create harsh contrasts on your face with blush or bronzer or whatever. If you are trying to create a lot of definition in your face and you want a snatched jawline or cheekbones, you can go ahead with a contour shade. A contour shade that I like for medium skin tones is the e.l.f. Halo Glow Contour Wand in the shade medium tan, and you need the smallest amount of it. I personally like to use a bronzer that is a bit more of a neutral undertone, still has a slight bit of warmth to it, so I can use it as contour and bronzer. I have defined features already, so I don't like to use a lot of contour. So I'm going to go in with the e.l.f. Putty Bronzer in the shade Golden Days. It's not a much deeper color than my skin tone. So I take like a small sort of dense brush here, and I'm gonna actually take that, going right in, and this is a very forgiving product. It's not super pigmented. It's really easy to work in, blend in, and sheer out. So I'm just gonna pop off any excess on the back of my hand. I like to keep it sort of high, and I'm stamping it on. That's already a little too much, so I'm gonna wipe it on my hand and diffuse the edges. So that's as much as I'm okay with. I'm gonna take that not taking any extra product, and just brushing that over the forehead. So I just created a very realistic definition to the face. It hasn't added any harshness or harsh contrast, just kind of looks like a very natural dimension. And then I'm going underneath the jawline. This sheer amount is not gonna carve out my angles or anything. I'm just trying to add that same color to the perimeters of my face. And that's what it looks like in comparison to the other side. Really just bringing balance back to the face. So I forgot to say that you totally don't have to go in with a cream bronzer or anything. If you don't want to, you can just go ahead and powder next and then do your powder bronzer. And then you can always use a sponge to diffuse the edges. So now I like to take a little bit of that bronzer and take it over my eyelid. And I'm just shaping out the shadow there and putting a little bit of bronzer on your eyelids. It's just gonna add so much life and dimension to your face and doesn't just blank it out. And you'll see the difference here. Putting a bronzer on that area where you have hyperpigmentation, you didn't have to conceal it for it to look really nice. When you put bronzer on the darkness, it just makes it look warmer and brighter. It evens things out. I'm gonna go in on this side, and then whatever is left on the brush, I will just take underneath that eye, just above that crease, okay? So you're giving your eyes that dimension. And really anywhere that I've left that excess hyperpigmentation, I'm just taking the bronzer and blending it. At this point, I would also add this bronzer to my nose, but I actually like to use a different undertone product for this, so I'm just going to do that later and show you. Next, I'm going to go in with a cream blush. I wish I had my favorite blush shade for this look, which is the e.l.f. Putty blush in the shade Maldives, and it's like a rich, deep red that gives you the perfectly naturally blushing look, but I don't have it, so I'm going to show you guys a couple different options. And again, if you don't like using cream blush, you can totally go ahead and use a powder blush later. So the first product that I'm going to show you guys is the Maybelline Superstay Liquid Lipstick in the shade Driver. This is like a nude beige shade. I don't know if they have this shade in store anymore. I think the closest one would be Poet, but you can even go in with like a nude lipstick that you like if you want a very natural look. So I just put a little bit there, and the placement that I like for this is you're gonna go right over the middle of your cheekbone. So if you feel for your cheekbone, it's right there, and I go right along it. So that's where most of the product is deposited, and I wipe off any of the excess here, and then I bring in the edge of the blending just up this way. It's not too high and not too low in my cheek. I'm just bringing it in the center here. I'm just gonna blend out the edges when there's nothing left. And now it looks like I'm actually blushing. And always start off with the smallest amount. It's always easier to build up color than to take away. And you wanna also bring it over your nose. And then you always wanna bring your blush color to your temple, just whatever's left over, and over your chin. Also take it on top of the eyelid just to bring all those colors back together. So this is the tone of blush that I would do if you're not used to using a lot of blush, or if you don't like a very blushed look. My personal preference is to go for that really naturally flushed look. So for that, what I do like to use is that red undertone blush that I was talking about, the Maldives shade that I don't have anymore. So the product that I'm going to use today is my L'Oreal Color Reach lipstick, and it's in this deep red shade Avant-Garde. The Maldives was even deeper than this and it was perfect, but I think this one's going to work because it's not like too warm, and you want to go for a red that's sort of neutral to bluer tone. So this one's very pigmented, so I'm going to take it off the back of my hand, and I haven't used this for blush yet, so I'm a little bit nervous, but let's see. Yeah, that's okay. So I'm using a very light hand, and I'm even gonna wipe off anything that's left. And then I will just do what I did before. And I know it looks a little bit crazy right now, but I promise once we've blended everything out, this is gonna look just fine. Whoa, that's a little too much. So I'm just gonna take that concealer brush. I'm not taking any extra product or anything, but just gonna wipe over that. And then at this point, I can just go and start blending that blush out with my sponge. And this is just gonna take away excess product and it's gonna melt the blush into your face. This is where I like to go in and powder. I'm gonna use the Maybelline Fit Me Loose Powder in the shade Light Medium. Now, you want to be careful here because you don't want to just undo all of that realistic work that you did by matting out your entire face. So I just have that tiny little bit of product there, and I'm going to take it on the brush and really work it in. And then I'm going to tap off the excess. And where you want to powder is like hot spots. So I'm going to actually go in the inner corners and bring it right down the center of my face, over the smile lines, really anywhere that you're gonna look oily. I'm gonna take it over my brows too, because I'm gonna give my brow product something to hold on to just right under the eye. So I'm not bringing it over the cheekbone, trying to keep that natural glow. I don't like to use highlighter on my face. I like to use the natural glow of my face as highlighter, so I'm only powdering where I absolutely need to. If you're an oily person, I would suggest using long-wearing products over using powder to set down your entire face. So using an oil control or gripping primer, a long-wearing foundation like a lightweight matte foundation, and then using a long-wearing setting spray before your powder and then after you powder. That's going to ensure your makeup is going to last a long time without you having to powder your entire face and take away all this realistic work. So that's the difference. I have set down the center of my face and anywhere where I look greasy without taking away that realistic dimension. So I'm going to do the same on this side. I really just powder around this cheek area. So you can still slightly set under your cheekbones, okay, but this area I leave it as is. Next, I'm gonna do brows. For brows, obviously I want to keep it looking pretty natural. I have very thin, sparse brows, so I'll show you guys how I like to quickly do my brows for a natural look. So I'm just going in with a cooler tone dark brown, well, I think it's a more neutral tone dark brown powder, and I'm just gonna sort of sketch out the shape first. I love using powder first because it just gives you such a soft look. So that's how full I like to have it. So I'm gonna do my other brow and I'll come right back. And then when you're done shaping it out with the powder, you can just brush it through the spoolie to disperse the product. Next, I use my NYX Lift and Snatch brow pen in the shade Espresso. So I'm just adding in hairs where I have like bald spots. This gives it like a real natural full look. So I'm gonna let that set first, and while that sets, I'm gonna go in and do the next step. I'm gonna use that same palette that I use for my brows, which is the e.l.f. Bite Size eyeshadow palette in the shade I Love You a Latte. And I'm going into this like sort of slightly neutral, cooler shade. And this is what I'm gonna use to shade out my nose. So again, just adding dimension and balance to my face. So before it was like just flat, and now you can see a three-dimensional nose. And then I might take that warmer shade and just set down whatever I used on my eye with that cream bronzer. For your eye look, you can leave it here and just go in with mascara. I personally love a little bit of a winged look, just something really soft. So I'll go back into this brown shadow on an angled brush, and I'll do the softest faint bit of a wing. I'll follow that along my lash line first, and then I'll do a slight wing. So I just did a soft wing with the eyeshadow there, and now I'm just gonna take a spoolie and brush through the brows to soften that previous brow pen that I used. And then I'm taking a little bit of the e.l.f. brow lift, and I'm just gonna brush my brows up ever so slightly. And then I'm going to use that lightest shade in the palette to highlight my cupid's bow and Just a little bit in the inner corners. Maybe a little bit under the brow bone as well. And then I'm using my favorite mascara, the L'Oreal Lash Paradise. This one volumizes, lengthens, builds up volume so quickly. It speaks for itself. Okay, so this is officially day 2 of filming. My light died again and my baby just kept waking up multiple times, so it was getting late and I had to stop filming, and I decided that I would come back and finish this part. So I had to actually redo my makeup and try to get it as close to what I had in the previous clips in the video. So hopefully it's close. I think I got it close enough. I guess we'll see post edit, but let's move on and finish the tutorial. So the last thing left is the lips. I always start by filling in my lips with a neutral pink lip liner. So I'm going to go in with my Ride or Die, the Milani lip liner in the shade All Natural. This is one of the most perfect nude neutral pink shades for medium brown skin tones. It just gives you such a natural wash of color. And then I always contour with a deeper brown pencil, and this one is Rimmel lip liner in the shade Brownie Pie. I love that this is like a pretty nice deep brown, and I always contour my lips with a deeper brown because, again, we're trying to create that definition, and especially when you have hyperpigmentation around your lips, it really helps to put down that base lip liner color that's going to give you an even wash of color and then bring the definition back with a contour shade. I do try to keep my lip liner always as natural as possible. The only thing I overline is my bottom lip and just slightly over the cupid's bow, but I would avoid doing this like straight line over the cupid's bow because that gives you that sort of how do I say it, that fake filler look. It does not look real. So you can still overline in the middle, but overline and keep that cupid's bow, okay? Like my cupid's bow doesn't come up that high. I just made it slightly higher. So you still get to keep a natural looking cupid's bow, but you still get fuller lips. And that way it doesn't end up looking like you have filler lips. You want fuller lips, not filler lips. Anyway, so that's my mom joke. And then you just want to go over with your finger and just lightly soften those lines because you don't want it to look like you have lip liner on like it's the 90s or something. And for lips, I'm going to take that same red that is on my cheeks and I'm just dabbing the tiniest bit on my finger, and I'm even dabbing a little bit off so I don't get too intense of a payoff. And then I'm just gonna give myself that light wash of color. This one gets intense really quickly, so I'm trying to be careful. So patting that red on the lips just gives you that perfect wash of naturally looking rosebud lips. And really the effect that we're going for is blood rushing to your cheeks and to your lips. And that's why I love using a deep red as a sheer wash of color over the face. Now with the lips, the finish is looking a little bit matte, which is not too lifelike, so I like to add a little bit of moisture back. So here you can take a lip balm or Vaseline, clear gloss, whatever shiny thing you have. I'm taking my NYX Butter Gloss in the shade Madeline, and then I'm just taking some on my finger, and I'm really just gonna dab it on the center of the lips. I actually mixed in a little bit of that red with it so it didn't go too nude. And the final thing that I love to do to bring back the realness of the skin is to just go in with like a dark eyeshadow or brown eyeliner. I'm just taking my NYX Lift and Snatch brow pen in the shade Espresso that I use for my brows, and I'm bringing my little marks back on my face. And this is what's going to complete the whole look for you by making it look like you have the most real skin possible while still having makeup on. So I hope you guys enjoyed my tutorial for this natural clean girl makeup look for brown skin, and I hope that this video leaves you feeling confident about showing off your natural skin more and loving the skin that you have, including your hyperpigmentation. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I will always respond. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye.